Well, hello there, everybody. It says, and allow me to get over here as I get everything ready. We're live, and indeed we are. So, welcome, everybody. It is Hump Day, Wednesday, and we give you thanks for being here. Thank you for sharing in this journey and your energy. And hey, you're welcome amongst friends. So, I speak favor over us every day because for myself, when 1,000 people hear this, that's 1,000 times multiplied. So, yeah, anyway, nothing missing, nothing broken. And hey, be of service to others. And when it's your time, there'll be someone there to help carry the water, as they would say. So, welcome everybody in the chat room. Hello, Chloe and Deborah Sloan, DC. Jules, Indigo Alien, how you doing? Lori, Genetically Modified Janet, how you doing? Everybody else, we must send much Scotty Boy and Jargo. So anyway, it's Wednesday. It is our day in which we talk about demonology and the things that are taboo, prohibited, shunned. We're taught to fear, be afraid, etc. This is what we're here to do, to bust through that and allow a perspective that is common sense for the common person, that you don't have to be afraid. You have friends you don't even realize, and they're trying to say, hey, we're here. So got my distinguished panel, Miss Nina the Mystic. How are you doing, my dear?
I'm doing excellent. How you doing, Wayne?
Doing exceptionally well, and I'll let everyone know, Nina is a grandmother. I mean, we've got youth here. That's all I got to say. I mean, we got youth. I'm just telling you, baby. So, by the way, congratulations and great news on that, Nina. It's a joy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a real joy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, you don't, as Rod Stewart would say, you wear it well. So, yeah. And of course, one of my favorite people, Ruric, who I've come to just enjoy your company and camaraderie. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you. I'm doing most fantastic.
Great. And you're a great place too, out in Utah. Is it still cold out there?
No, it's rather humid actually. Pretty warm.
Yeah. That is really unusual. Yeah. I don't usually associate Utah, although it is beautiful country out there. There's no doubt about it. Yes, it is. Here's a true story. So back in the day when, I was doing presentations at investment conferences, was chosen to present in Salt Lake City. Oh, wow. And when I got there, we were in a building. I met this guy. He was an attorney. Actually, they owned the building, investment firm. And in fact, he was on the judging panel that allowed, you had to go through in order to get to the big show.
Right.
True story, folks. So how many of you know about Skinwalker Ranch, the show on the History Channel? Travis, which is a nice guy. Yeah. So the guy that owns that ranch, the one that flies the helicopter, the one that has the building in Salt Lake City, that was the dude.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
No freaking idea. At the time, it's like, wow. So anyway, life is very interesting. And I do enjoy what's going on out there at Skinwalker Ranch. We're finally getting the opportunity, as Travis has said in many podcasts, that portals are real. Mm-hmm. There are things here that have been here before mankind got here, which implies that before mankind's gods. And there is an active portal in that piece of real estate that leads to another dimension. They're absolutely convinced of it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I digress. I know JD will be joining us hopefully here in a little bit, but anyway, panel, we left off last week on the topic of, can our souls be marked? Do we mark our souls? I mean, much to like when a person gets a tattoo, which goes back, way back. I mean, man has always adorned his body to represent that which he cherishes most.
Yeah.
Was that a fair statement?
I'd say so. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I don't have tattoos. I have natural marks that, but there are, and it's really resurged within the last 10, 20 years that now it's an art form.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note how, you have ancient cultures that have all kind of delved into this, marking of the skin in your flesh,
Yeah, I mean, I think of primarily the Samoan Pacific area. They go way back, and this is it, as I understand, it's an initiation and rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's heavy stuff.
It's like a tribal thing where they have whatever accomplishments that they've done. They'll, certain tattoos. You kind of see their status, and like there's a lot of things. I think to the whole marking. Tattoo things.
You look at the Roman legions.
Mm-hmm.
Every soldier was tattooed. Every one of them. And people think it's taboo, and because my background came particularly in the book of Leviticus, where it said you cannot mark your body. That's a sin. But yet, what's that?
So it makes you wonder why. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like, what's up with that? But that's what they did back then. I mean, they really did. That's how you marked someone. That's how you knew.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Now, Nina, do you have any tattoos?
I do. I got one around my leg.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it though. Yeah.
Did it hurt?
A little bit, but you kind of relax into the pain, and I almost fell asleep actually. But
well, that's kind of cool.
You got to get into meditative states, when you're doing that, not think about it, and then you just kind of, it's what you can do. Well, once you've given birth a couple of times, a little tattooing.
What's a tattoo to that? Precisely. I mean, it's like, yeah. Well, that's where us men, we're not the strongest of the species. I don't care what anyone said. I've challenged every man who thinks he's really macho and what have you will give birth. Make you want to cry mama.
Yeah.
I love that. So we were talking about, and I went back and started doing a little bit more digging. Mm-hmm. So the act of baptism is in fact a tattoo. It's a marking of one's soul.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, it may not be visible to us. Then you have in the book of Revelations, the 144,000, which will all be marked. Mm-hmm. A tattoo, their souls marked. This one apparently will be, readily identifiable. You look at Cain, this usurper God actually put a mark on Cain, tattooed, marked him. And of course, the curse was that anyone that killed him would receive sevenfold what Cain was to inherit.
Right.
So it's very obvious that, and I don't know if this is something in the unseen realm, but in order for us to be marked, I mean, and they can see it in the other realm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you can be marked for any number of reasons, like we kind of dabbled on last live, we kind of like ended on the tail end of that. A lot of beings that you run into on the astral will be covered in tattoos, and it'll really pretty much tell their story, to tell you who they are, who they work with, what pantheon they're from, kind of thing. It's and the same goes for you. Your astral body is covered. It's absolutely covered. It depends how deep you really want to look. I mean, you might even have marks from past lives, from any interaction that you've had. And you could, like I said, you could be marked for any number of reasons. It could be initiation into a certain energy current, or doing a path working with a certain entity, the deeding over of one's soul, as Jehovah would put it. With that, it's not a fun time. But like I said before, Jehovah is the only one that really does that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sick. I've and this is one of my journeys back in the day, but when we were taught how to use LSD and then back in the day they called it transcendental meditation, to transcend into the astral, the beings that I met, the one particularly that they challenged me, and I did get to go through, but I never thought about it. But the one particularly, when you talked about tech too, there was markings, but these markings were almost alive.
Yes.
They undulated, and in the course of a conversation, it would appear one thing, and then it was very, I considered it at the time part of the effect, but now I realize it was probably more true than I realized.
You got to think we're not stationary, and we're not in stasis by any means. We are always growing and developing, and that includes our soul, our energy body, and everything like that. Those tattoos can morph and change and turn into other things. I've gotten or received tattoos temporarily just to bring forth a certain energy into my life, whether it's like, self-discipline, or, have that willpower, etc., or like, do this certain work with this path, working with this entity, and that can all change. Everything with your astral body and your energetic body can change and develop and transform. So it's very interesting. The times I've seen my astral body, it's always been different over the years. So it's interesting.
It would make sense.
Change. Yeah.
I mean, back in my days in the youth, and when I had a group that was actually going to do me in, the individual, and I've told this story many times because it was life. It was real freaking life and death. But the guy that actually had the gun turned around and he said, "We can't touch this dude. There is something." And he pointed, he says, "It's right there. Don't you guys see it?" And the two on each side of me, they didn't see anything, but he saw it, and it freaked his ass out.
That's interesting.
So I've gone through my life realizing that there is something there. I don't know to this very day what he saw. I still don't. But it affected him enough that,
Well, when people
I got out with my life, as they would say.
When people get a peek beyond the veil, it can be freaky.
It can be freaky. It's very odd. And, I think this whole thing, like with baptism now, it's real interesting because I've been studying this, and there's apparently a reverse baptismal that basically undoes the contract, because that's what it really is. It's a contract.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. and if you're a part of that contract and you break that contract, there's consequences to it.
Absolutely.
These beings don't mess around.
Oh yeah. Well, you got consequences to look forward to, like, freedom and liberation.
Someone said to me recently, they said, "Well, whatever mark you had, it's long gone."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I said, "Well, I guess that may be true." It did it. By the way, I want to give a shout out to all the folks there in Boston that are going to SatanCon. I find it interesting that we are living in such a day and age where things are rapidly changing. We talked before we went live, this whole thing of the First Amendment we have here in the United States. And, I know the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, but I never considered that the fact that our interpretation was, well, that right was only for Christians. Christians are the only ones that are allowed to have prayer in the House of Representatives. Christians are the only one allowed to have prayer in the Senate. Christians are the only one that are allowed to have prayer in city halls, sports meetings. But yet we have this thing that it says the government shall not endorse or restrict any religion or belief. So why can't us Luciferians walk in and give our invocation? Right. In the House of Representatives? Why can't we give the opening invocation at the city hall meeting or at the NFL or the Major League Baseball?
Actually, I have seen that done. There has been some incidences where they've done that.
And do you recall
I
specifically?
don't recall where it was now, but I saw it on YouTube. So they filmed it. So I saw it. Yeah,
Interesting.
Location right in the court, and then they were outside the court. They did a whole thing there, and it was like a big deal because, of course, that doesn't happen very often. So they are starting to kind of, push their way in there and to get this going. So
Now, was this in the United States, Nina?
Yeah, in the States. Yeah.
Okay, good. Anyone in the chat room have, here we go, Wayne, just kick it off. Hey, they gave me this torch and said, hey, light it. So
Just
we
bust
did.
on the door and go, "Hail Satan!"
That's exactly what people think too. It's like, hail Satan, hail, and go,
Oh yeah.
you can't do that.
I dare you to go into the church on Sunday morning and do that.
Michelle says, you're a Luciferian. We never heard you say that. Well, it's by definition, by the actions, is if you look at what they classify a Luciferian as, and I did that show 2 weeks ago specifically, so everyone could have an understanding when you hear this term. I mean, am I like a card carrying? No. It's more of a philosophical agreement.
Right.
And that's how I look at it, because I resonate with that.
Right.
Exactly what Luciferians do. They're not here. They're not the bad guy. They're not the one causing all the woe of the world. They're not the one bringing this ushering in that's coming in. This is not Lucifer. This is not associated with this. This is a religion that has been in play for millennia, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And you're reaping exactly what we have sown as a nation. I'm so fed up with where I live. They're blaming the woes of the world, the United States government, all on the devil.
Yeah. Of course.
But the devil's never been on the ballot.
Right. Exactly.
And then they use it for a catch-all phrase. What devil?
Mm-hmm.
They won't use the word, and it's very interesting because none of the people where I live in this part of the country, they won't use the word Lucifer.
Yep.
Not coming across their lips. It's the devil. It's the demons.
Yeah. Let's just generalize it all.
We're gonna have something for
scapegoat.
Somebody to blame things on. It's always been that way, right? Whereas humans,
yeah.
we always got to find something or somebody, right? And that's been the devil's been sort of the thing that we've been using in the last 2,000 years, right? Because nobody wants to take responsibility for themselves,
No, can't do that, Nina.
No, can't do that. So, yeah.
It's interesting to note. I mean, just beware what works in the shadows. Lucifer is kind of known as the illuminator. He's all about dispelling delusions and the veil that keeps you grounded in this chaos. It's it's very,
if you hear the Christians here, and and listen, folks, I used to be one, so it gives me the right to talk about it because I know it. Now, I don't know the Quran. I don't know the Vedic, so I can't speak on that, but I can speak from my personal experience.
right.
And I've attended those meetings in congressmen's and offices and the prayer meetings and what have you. There is this subcurrent belief that, well, there are those of in my time in politics where they were devout Christians, but they'll tell you there's devil worshipers in here. There's the work of the devil here. These are freaking representatives that believe this stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean, now, I don't know what's it like in Canada, Nina, but I'm sure there has to be similarities.
Oh, yes. Yeah. There's a church on every corner.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. And don't get me started on the oh man, I had another run-in. So we knew a very well-known televangelist who got a new jet, $23 million.
Wow.
Because Jesus has been very good to him.
Very good to him, yeah.
and I'm thinking, well, you son of a bitch. So you think God wants to give you this $25 million jet because you're so goddamn righteous, but yet you steal from the very people. You are the pit of vipers that sit in the pulpit. You're the ones that steal. You're the ones that give Lucifer the bad name because your actions are exactly what you're saying that you're against. You rob, you steal, you take the food off people's table because this God demands that you pay a tax before you can come before. I mean, I'll get off my rant. Sorry, you two.
Yeah, I know.
It
Like
just-
if they were like Christian, and good, upstanding Christian folk, wouldn't they take that 23 million and spend it on the homeless? Like,
Well, why wouldn't exactly? You
know,
could go into a
like-
city.
I mean,
You
yeah,
think about it, $23 million. So let's just take the average cost of $250,000 for a home. You could actually do it for $100,000. So if I got the math right, that would be 230 homes that you could build, and make a difference in a community.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
so that,
Wonderful
that,
outreach
that
program.
alone should pretty much just tell you about that religion right there. Because
Right
you know,
there.
all these fuckers that got all this money, yet they won't, spend it on the poor or the needy or whatever. No, more gold. Let's just look at the Vatican, like all the gold they got there and all of it. I mean, yeah, it just makes me mad.
Yeah. Here's your sign. They get away with it. They get
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
They do.
Now, if you imagine if you reverse all that and you do these things in the name of these other entities, like these gods, Lucifer and whatnot. Oh,
And I've never heard Lucifer ever say that I had to do a tithe. I've
Yeah.
never heard Lucifer tell me that, in order to, I have to give because this is, and I've never heard of that. He's never said, I'll give you a jet and I won't give them one.
right.
In fact, I can't say that Lucifer has ever been associated in my teaching with materialism.
Mm-mm. No.
Actually, matter of fact, sometimes some of these entities, when you ask, offerings, sometimes they want you to go and feed the critters outside. As simple as that. It doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be anything big like that. Just go and give the critters a little something to eat. So really, when you look at it, it's completely opposite of what they've told us, right? So.
Oh yeah. And it's nothing's really given to you on a silver platter either. It's for your benefit, for you to learn and grow. It's like, okay, you want some money? Cool. All right. Well, let's teach you how. Not only how I'll bring some opportunities into your life, but I'm also going to show you how best to use that, as well as how to keep that money. It's a whole learning process. They'll help you and they'll give you stuff, but you're going to learn along the way. You're going to become better and you're going to evolve into the best version of yourself. So,
and that's what gets me. I mean, I'm serious about this. And this is why, there's not much written on Lucifer. And that tells me a lot right there. Now, there have been modern day versions, Anton LaVey with his Satanic Bible. And I think I have got one over here called the Lucifer's Bibles. These are modern day versions.
Right.
But, I was so deeply involved. I was an ordained minister, I've got the credentials.
yeah.
And I witnessed firsthand. And, here's the other thing. So we supposedly served an all-powerful God that, provides ultimate protection and what have you. But in these very churches, you've got security now. You've got guys that carry full autos.
Wow.
Now, wait a minute. I thought that and listen, I lived in Colorado when the massacre took place there in Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. And who got the blame for that? Satan. It was the devil that entered into this individual.
Right.
Well, where was this God at? I mean, and then the elitism. So, yeah, when I look at this, I pretty much dedicated my life to saying, all right, I was involved with a really bad wrong.
Yeah.
And it is. I was an elitist. because God blessed me. I got to fly first class, while the rest of you assholes had to go back in the cattle section. Why? Because I have God's favor on my life. He's elevated me and allowed, that is a sick attitude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then if you carry that over into the ethereal realm, holy shit.
When you're in it, you believe all sorts of stuff. You believe all sorts of stuff, and you really allow it to be just so ingrained in you. And that famous saying, if it's not of God, it's of the devil, right? So anything that you're uncomfortable with, anything that makes you pause and think, oh, that's the devil. That's I'm being tricked here, or I'm being led astray, or
deceived.
Exactly. And what? And it just takes away your own discernment and understanding. Before I came to this path, man, I would watch these like testimonials, like Christian testimonials, right? And they're like, oh, how they, the devil had the hands on them and all this other stuff. And man, I ate it all up. But now, seeing that stuff now, I'm like, wow. Like, these people are just straight up making up shit,
Yeah.
It's a boast fest. It's bragging. I used to be this. I used to be so cool. I used to be so simple. But then I found Jesus. Like, I'm like, wow, how sick. But people who don't know any better, they eat it up. They're like, oh, thank goodness. Oh, wow. God's really done the number to help you. It's wow. No, but I wouldn't know that if I didn't.
It's a way of getting attention too, right? Because or so that you a place where you belong. All of a sudden, people will welcome you in there now because you're all, So it's a it's a play, like, really, right? It's
it is a play.
Mental illness as well on top of that, right? So
go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I would say it's also about not taking accountability for your stuff. It's like
because the devil made me do it. It's the devil's fault. Right. Yeah.
How about you're just a shitty person there, Jake? and you need to get your shit together.
That was one thing that kind of pissed me off, actually. It's like, so you can go out and kill, like, be a mass murderer and whatever, then all of a sudden ask for forgiveness. Now all of a sudden everything's all good now.
Yeah.
That to me, it was like, what? Like, that doesn't seem right to me.
Another point.
Yeah. I don't know.
Another point that you just there, Wayne, you just talked about, I'm losing my train of thought here. It's like how interesting it is that when you have like these mass shootings or like some kind of massacre, in the name of Jehovah or whatever, no one blames the religion. Everything else. Now, and then you take people who like do horrible things in the name of Satan and whatever, and they're like, wow,
I'll get
we told you.
We told you. Yeah. And like, well, look at where they're at now. I mean, you, like I said before, you do stuff in the name of some of these entities, you'll get your ass handed to you, Well,
and then go ahead, hon.
It's kind of funny with this woke movement that we got going now, right? The last, I don't know if it was the last shooting, the last one I remember hearing about, it was actually a transgender woman that did it. But we're not going to mention that in the headlines at all, right? Oh, no.
And the Christian community will tell you that she was a lost soul. I mean, it's like I read on the Satan Con, a woman who is a part of an organization down in Atlanta, Intercessor Prayer Warriors. And she said, well, I prayed to God about this and didn't hear anything. So then I decided that, well, what we need to do is repent before God and then go to this Satan Con thing, because these are lost souls and we're going to be the intercessory prayer warriors to win them back.
Right.
Yep.
I told Lynn, I said, honey, you see what they just said? Yeah. I said, this is about souls. This is like being traded on a stock exchange.
Yeah.
Well, Nina's stock went up 4 points because, and so now.
That's another thing that I didn't like too. Is like, oh, so you're just doing these things so that you can get brownie points in heaven. You're not doing these things because you want to be nice to that person. No, you're just, and that was another thing that irked me about the whole thing too.
And the other thing I heard, in fact, we preached this, that, well, if you're not seeing the best of what God what he's promised and offered, it's because you lack faith.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
Put the blame back on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Take it off
It's
of them.
not God's fault. It's your
No.
fault.
Let's
Yeah.
gaslight. Yeah.
I'm
That's,
like, well, wait a
That's
minute. I
exactly
mean,
what it is.
I'm confused here. The
Yeah.
cat said that, I'm supposed to love. I'm not supposed to covet. I'm not supposed to kill.
But he does
Exactly
that.
what he does.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you're telling me that it's Satan's fault or it's Lucifer's fault. And I can see Lucifer in my mind's eye going, what? What? Again, it's this immediate, it's everyone else's fault. And I'm telling you, we're going to hear more of it because the United States is in a state of change.
Right.
Governments are changing, attitudes, perceptions, beliefs, and the old guard is digging in. This is what was prophesied in the Bible. This is all coming to pass. Can't you see this?
Yeah.
And there's the rest of us going, well, so you have no accountability of this? Wait a minute. I didn't say Lucifer voting,
Yeah.
You used to have this thing with the moral majority.
Yeah.
What? Who's defining the morals here? And now, the ones that are defining the morals are the ones that are fornicating, having adultery, stealing, coveting, and all the rest of this.
Yep. Yeah.
And yet, I can't find Lucifer with any blood in its hands. I don't think it's a he. I'm not sure if it is even a gender.
But spirits are who can present themselves in
It can be both.
Yeah. I've seen, and I'll say this out publicly. I have found more kindness with Lilith than I ever did with a Christ. Yeah.
There you go.
She never accused me of anything, never said I've fallen short, never said that I lacked, never said that I had to go through this and this and this in order to be qualified enough to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I can easily, for 50 years of my life, show you through the New Testament, and whether if we want to go in the Old Testament, that there is a litany of the things that, most humans can never live up to. It's not our nature.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's genius in that. There's genius in that because you set the standard way high where it's virtually unachievable. So that shows that your need for grace, your need for salvation, you're already coming on your knees, right? It's to keep you in that placement.
You're already indebted.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now, Nina and Ruric, in your walk, and by the way, check Nina's channel. I know you did a 2-part on your how you arrived where you have gotten to be in that. So we all come from the same vein. And the experience someone asked me about, they said, well, you don't seem to have guilt. I said, I gave that up. I mean, that is the worst thing that any person can have. If you have what I would call undefined guilt that's being put upon you just because you are a part of a species. Mm-hmm. So how did y'all deal with that? I mean, you've come from the same backgrounds, more or less, right?
Yeah. I think we're all from sort of the same Christian kind of background. Yeah.
Traitors. I had someone actually write that to me. You traitor.
We're all Judases here.
So damn, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Things
I mean, if you can't see what we just said, like all the things we're talking about, if you can't see that, like that you really do have some blinders on, and isn't there some part in the Bible, there's something about wiping something out of your eyes?
I think it's called the speck, then you're getting the log out of yours.
Right.
That's another one. But no, there's literally some like a film on your eyes you can't see.
Oh, yeah. There's scales. Paul, in his conversion on the road from Damascus, and that's what fell from his eyes were the scales. And suddenly he could see.
So that's exactly what's going on. Christians have the scales on there. Ours fell off already, and that's why we can see now. You see, and I think that's kind of, they're under spell essentially.
Yes.
You know, like the God Spell series that you did. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now-
People don't want that.
Jehovah is not necessarily against you developing psychically, as long as it's under his control. That's why you have all these like Christian faith healers and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Right. As long as you serve the purpose that he wants, and as a tool, under his guidance, he has no qualms of doing that for sure.
It's interesting when you brought that up, Rick, because immediately I was brought back to Saul, King Saul.
Yeah.
And, when he was losing on the battlefield and David came in, and when Jehovah said, well, now, because he cut Saul off.
Right.
And and he said, well, David, now you go in there and you tell Saul that he's going to lose this battle. So what did Saul do? Well, he apparently went to a witch, the witch of Endor. And she actually, as you read the story, actually brought, which prophet did he, and I'll think of the prophet, but actually brought this prophet back into full apparition. And the prophet said, why have you broken my sleep? He said, this day, Saul, you will surely die. So that was just really interesting how you triggered that. It was like, because number one, it shows that the craft is real.
Yes.
And those who practice the craft, who get good at it, can actually bring forth the dead.
Yes. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And by the way, the witch was never punished.
It's, well, I mean, there's so many blatant things to look at. As compiled jargon as the Bible really is, there's statements in there that say other gods, false god, saying they're gods, right?
Admitting to it,
And oh man, it's just it's before even Christianity became a thing, before one of the 12 tribes of the Israelites, decided to start writing shit down. I mean, before that even came about, civilizations that didn't even know each other from across the globe all had different gods, right? And what's interesting to note, because you talked about Lucifer and like how you haven't seen any or heard of anything written about him or said that he has any blood on his hands, etc. A lot of these entities have several different names, and they're known by many different names all throughout history. But it's interesting to know, if you ever took the time to look at all the different gods in these different cultures, and you line them all up, they all seem to have some similarities. Like, wow, this one sounds a lot like this one. It's very interesting. It's very ancient, very ancient. They've been around for a long, long time. Christianity is a very new concept.
Rick, I'd love to get in the same room with you and Nina, and even with JD and others, because you've had experiences with these ethereal beings. And I've had people write to me and they say, well, they're very frightened. They don't know, they weren't necessarily Christians, but then again, they never dabbed, quote unquote, dabbed. And I went, what are you smoking? But anyway, to these so-called demons, these things. So from a neophyte point of view, could you tell me what your first experience was with them? Were you drawn particularly to one, or did you seek one out?
Are you asking me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, both of you. And so I'll let you go first, Ruric.
It was I will say, off the bat, not really. I like I had mentioned before, I came along this path because I was still thinking through the lens of as a Christian would. It's like, what? I heard this story that I could sell my soul to the devil and I could have in a materially rich life. I mean, everything's great. I mean, my soul's damned, but I mean, I'm going to be a rock star, basically. And
I can see you a rock star, though. I just got to tell you, got the motif, got the look.
It worked. No, I'm just playing. No, but yeah, it was like, I'll think of the consequences later. Like, that was my idea. And so I hit the internet and was like, how am I going to sell my soul? And to my surprise, there's a lot of information out there about it, even though that's not a thing. It's hilarious. But man, I did everything I could think of. And this one time I wrote up this like kind of a declaration that we were talking about, like the reverse baptism. This declaration, like, I, accept this and that, and whatever, and just called on these entities. They all showed up, the ones that were around me, and they kind of like the way I felt in their presence. It was a giant shift. Here I thought I was doing something sinister, and I was waiting for this evilness to just protrude from the room around me. Instead, I got love and compassion, and just felt like a little child. And wow. They were like, you know what, that's not real. That's not a thing. You can't sell your soul. But we are glad that you're finally acknowledging our presence. And so that's what it started, because I'm like, wow, then it's just not what you would think, So I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of wrong. What else is? What's really true? Right. And you go through, as you open yourself up to not only the idea that there's this giant spirit realm and everything else that the Bible will tell you is not true, like that there's ghosts and stuff. People can't wrap their mind around that there's ghosts, right? As you go along, it just it changes your perception of everything. And the more you start to peel back that psychic filter, like I was talking about the other day, and you start to see all the entities that have been around you even since you were born. You have your soul knows and recognizes that energy, and it feels like home. And you will come across entities later in your path that will show you the times that they've been with you. And it's very interesting in times of hardship and stuff that, times they've comforted you, and you realize like, wow, that was them. You could feel their energy. It's crazy. And they're all there for what purpose? To help you grow. It's not like, give me your soul and we're going to give you power and all this. No, it's like, okay, let's get to work. We love you. You're great, but you could be better. It's time. Let's get to work. And so that was not at all what I ever thought would be possible. That's not at all what's ever being preached and shouted at the hilltops. So, what am I to do but to dive in and find out what the truth really is? And like we said in the last, podcast, there is a difference between learning to look through truth versus faith. And that it makes the world of difference. So that's why I like being on, things like this, doing what I do, because I want people to start thinking outside the box, outside whatever you've been taught. Find the answers for yourself. Make an informed decision only when you have all the facts. So
I appreciate you both, and JD as well, because I look at y'all as guides. And when you look at for humanity's sake, mm-hmm. Your personal experience speaks more to me personally than I could ever read from a book.
Well, yeah, for sure. I could see that. You're human too, man. We're not perfect, but we're striving to be. We're striving to get better. Like, I know you guys probably saw me last couple of lives, but I was smoking I've been smoking my whole life, and I've been smoking a lot. I had to quit, because it's a vice. It's something that, had control over my life. So how am I to receive power or be given some power if I can't even control my own life? See, this is the development process. This is like, we need to get you better, So it's incremental. We're not perfect, but man, we are on the path of self-awareness. We're trying to look at the things that, don't belong, the things that don't serve us, and really taking that big, deep dive into your own psyche. You talked about earlier about like guilt and shame and how you let that all go. So there is our soul is very complex. As singular as we think we are, we're actually very multifaceted. We have many different aspects and facets to our soul, one of which is called the shadow. Now, I know that is a very Jungian concept, but I assure you it's a very real thing. So what the shadow is it's part of you. It is autonomous to an extent that you can have a conversation with it, talk with it, but it holds on to everything that you oppress, everything even that you're, maybe oblivious to, everything that you push down, traumas that you may have had, you don't want to look at, the guilt and the shame from certain things you've done, you just push it away. And you know what? You have to work on it. If you want to become all that you could ever be, you have to integrate all these aspects of yourself. And how do you do that? You have to work for those traumas, those things that you push down and you refuse to look at. You got to, because either you can become friends with your shadow, or you and it can take turns dominating one another. Ooh. And it will eat you alive. So you have to learn to process things, process your emotions, process all the traumas that you've gone through in your life, because that not only helps you integrate different parts of yourself, but it helps you process things in the future that come along. It's therapy times 1,000 is basically what I could say. Being on this path, if you're willing to face yourself, you can move mountains.
There is an accountability I found. I mean, I look back at my life, and the upbringing that I went through was that you'd have this guilt. I made a decision 20 years ago, and it had, very bad consequences and effect. But within the last, decade, particularly within the last 5 years, I look at myself now, and this is what I tell self.
Yeah.
You'd have done it the same way over and over again. It was a decision that was made. Accept it and quit with this thing going, well, if I only had done.
Yes.
I mean, that is a spiral down into the depths of hell itself, of depression.
Yeah. Shame and guilt. Don't look at it. Oh, Jesus washed my sins away. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to do this. It's building up. Every desire you have, there's shame attributed to it, and guilt because you even thought a certain way, etc. I mean, it just gangs up on you and it paralyzes you. It keeps you in this box that you keep making smaller and smaller and smaller. So oh man, it's liberating, and it's for more ways than one, to be able to just say enough is enough. I want to know the truth. I'm tired of being told what it is. I don't care if I grew up with knowing this. What is truth?
I love this group because, and what we got to get you in here in the conversation. For myself, what I have found is that I am who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm old enough now in life to know money doesn't bring you happiness. There's not enough sex in the world to ever bring you satisfaction. Yeah. There's not enough power to ever satisfy a position, because there's always another step higher in power. Mm-hmm. And in so many times, I find myself weeping as I walk outside on our property, because, there is this overwhelming sense of, there is a compassion feeling. It's like, I really just want to know the truth.
Yeah.
I don't want anything from you. I don't want you to bless me. I don't want you to do anything. What I want is truth.
Yeah. I want to help you help yourself.
Yeah.
This is a common theme that I see. And, you got to have compassion. And one of the biggest things that Lucifer really helped me with, and it would state over and over again, you got to have love for yourself. It's okay, but you're too hard on yourself. It's okay. And we're just so accustomed to that, just being so hard on ourselves.
Nina, what say you?
Yeah,
Nina, jump in on here.
Come on down.
So the question was, what was the question again?
I forgot.
I know. I'm so sorry.
I think I kind of know what the question was. I went seeking. I would say first. I did go seeking for it first, but to be honest, I did before I kind of decided on who I kind of wanted to work with or whatever. They actually came to me. So
how they introduced themselves to you, dear?
Oh, it was in the astral. Like it was in, yeah. So I'm going to be doing an upcoming episode on my personal experience series there with that, especially because I had a Zazel. It's quite profound. So I want to wait for that to tell you all the details, but it was quite the experience. Yeah.
Were you
So
frightened at first?
no. So
Excellent.
I've twice now I've had Azazel and Lucifer come to me, and they both came to me in their scary form at first. And I do believe that's a bit of a test, if you will, to see what you're made of, and so I passed them both times. And then once you do that, once you overcome that fear, you're not fearful of them, they kind of morph into their normal kind of way that they look. And yeah.
The one told me when I said, "You're pretty ugly," and they said, "You ought to see you, how you look to us." What?
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean?
But that testing that Nina said is very accurate. That's very accurate. It's like they're investing their time into you. So,
Ooh.
is it going to be worth it? Are you going to scare away because your preconceptions of what they're going to look like, and they may morph into that just to see you? Are you serious? Are you serious about learning what else is out there, or are you going to just run back to whatever you were indoctrinated by? So,
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Nina, I'm curious, and I don't want to take any away from the upcoming show, but it's always nice to give a teaser. At least that's how it worked. But anyway, so Anzel, is that right? Azel?
Azazel?
Azazel. So, and taking Ruric, what you said, there's an investment here. It's an investment from the individuals, investment from the spiritual energy. Why that one particularly? Have you come to? Was it something that he saw all your life? I mean, I believe that there are those spirit beings that are assigned to us when we come into this realm, and though they may never manifest, they're there. Is that kind of the relationship?
Yeah, I think, that they're not going to come unless you're ready, unless you want to, kind of thing, So like I said, I was already kind of, dabbling in there and seeking and asking, and, so yeah, I don't think they're just going to out of the blue all of a sudden show up if you have no interest in them at all. No, you know, and I do believe too, like Ruric was saying, we've probably worked with these guys like past lives, and it's always been there. We just didn't know it, because you come in here with amnesia, we don't remember anything, and just fall for the indoctrination, of course. I mean, we're just human, right? But they're waiting. They're patiently waiting. May not be this lifetime. You might have to wait for the next one or whoever, but they're patiently waiting for us, right? And they know when you're ready, so.
I have sensed that there has to be at least the makings of trust.
Mhm.
I mean, I wouldn't marry someone who I distrusted or I didn't believe in what they say to me.
Yeah.
It's an intimacy that is, and it's as I was telling Lynn, I said, the intimacy it's that you're kind of just, you open yourself to say, this is who and what I am.
Yeah.
Not perfect. I'm not ashamed of the things I've done in the past. It's just who and what I am.
Mhm.
And you know what? I like friends. And I have friends in this realm, but I also know that the next realm is fastly coming. And these beings are there. I think I've had the true experience because I got to live this life. They did not.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's something like being at I guess like a reunion party. It's like, man, I've missed you, Yuric. Man, we've known each other for eons. And Nina came across you, that epoch ago, and and it's like you just want to give everybody a hug, maybe shed a few tears, maybe smile. And these beings, I sense, are very much in the same way.
Oh yeah, like I said, your soul remembers. And it is very much like that. I know I've been been exploring in the astral with some of these entities, and then they're showing me how to get to one place to another through different realms. And you come across this realm that is just so gorgeous, and you can't even put it into words. You just the emotion that comes over you. You've been there before. That familiarity, right? It's just like it almost takes you to tears just because you've been there before. Or you stumbled into a realm and you met another entity that brings that out in you, and it's like all of a sudden you're just so homesick, and you're like, what is this? You know, or you've met an entity that tells you like how long you've really known each other, and deeply you absolutely know. Like, you know, Thoth, for example. Thoth, I'm not sure if I mentioned this yet in one of these lives, but when I went to visit Thoth, you know, he came up to me and smiled and was holding this scroll in his hand. And he was telling me that I had no problem crossing over every time I would die. And I would always pop in to come see him. And that I would always ask for his advice when writing up my next plan for the next life that I want to have to live. And he was holding one of the scroll for this very life that he helped me with. And had my signature, showed it to me. And just the interaction we had, I could feel it. It was just that bro energy that, like, I can't believe like we really have that connection. And then I think about like when I first heard of Thoth, you know, in this life, you know, it was like when I first came on this path, he just, you know, his name would pop up, and it was just kind of like, hey, just let you know, I'm here, you know, just to realize, just to find out the connection I really had with this entity. And it's all like that. As you know, traverse this path, is really just the peeling back of layers and remembrance of who you are, coming back to yourself, understanding and seeing like the lives you've lived and the beings you've come to know. It's very interesting. And
this conversation is such, there's an anointing here. There is a feeling, maybe it's just me, but there is this overwhelming sense of peace, compassion, and serenity. It's very magical here at this moment. Maybe it's just me, but you know, I'm digging it.
Yeah, I do want to put out there, just because I hear this a lot. You know, I'll say stuff like this and we can have these conversations, but there'll always be people that have had negative experiences with anything paranormal. You know, they lived in some haunted house, or they knew someone that was possessed by something and they thought it was a demon. You know, how do you explain that? What was that? You know, there are nasty creatures out there. I'm sorry to tell you, it's everything exists in so many different realms. You have nasty creatures. You have parasites that attach to people. You'll see them. You develop your psychic abilities. You'll see them attached to people, sucking their energy. You're fucking cattle. That's what you are. You know, and yeah, there are some nasty things out there, but doesn't mean they're demons. You need to know what the reality is, who these spirits are, the different species that exist. You know, just man, there's a whole reality that you've just kept yourself blind to. And that's what I want people to just dabble, just dive in just a little bit. Just open your eyes. Yeah.
I mean, that's why, you know, I could afford it, but I bought all the paranormal equipment. And what I have found is that if you go in anticipating or expecting, you're going to find it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
It's going to be there.
Ghosts will come out of the woodwork, especially on this path, and you start developing your psychic abilities. They're like, this guy will hear me. You know, it's like if they got something to say or whatever, man, they just come out of the woodwork, man. And yes, you'd be like, not tonight. I need to sleep.
Man, the hair's rising up because I was in a meditation, you know, I was sitting on the floor and what have you. And wow. And this has just been within the last month. I had to get up because the voices it was a cacophony. Yeah. I mean, I fucking couldn't hear any of them because there was too many of them.
Yes.
Does that make sense? I don't know.
It does. I've experienced the very same thing. I remember one time I was meditating on my bed and I was actually really focused on like if I was trying to get out of my body at this time, right? Because I knew that was a thing. And so I was like, if I get really deep into meditation, it'll happen, you know? So I thought, I'm just, you know, just relaxing. And then all of a sudden it was like this shift happened. And it was like I was in a crowded mess hall or something. There's just so many voices going on and everything. I'm like, and I'm listening in to some of these conversations, and there's this dude with a British accent and this other thing, you're like, what is going on here? And then you're like, I think I can hear you, and then all of a sudden, quiet. And then they're like, good. They're talking about me too. Like, this guy sitting on his bed and whatever. It's like, it's hilarious. But yeah.
I swear, I mean, I was back transported into time. I was back at this pizzeria underneath the MetLife building down in New York, in Manhattan. And the freaking ceilings are these concave ceilings, and you can't hear shit in there. I mean, everybody's talking, and it's just, yeah. Nina, you were smiling. What were you smiling about, dear?
I was just what he was just saying in there. Yeah. And I hope that people don't get freaked out hearing that, thinking that, oh, you get all these ghosts watching me all the time, but
guess what? They will be. Everyone who's listening to this, you're going to die. Just accept it. You're going to put this body down. Now, the question is, where are you going to end up?
Yeah. See, that's a big one that they will always hold over you, or they being like Christians and stuff like that. Right?
Yeah.
That's why I encourage people, get out of your body. Because yes, that's a thing. That's a thing. And once you do, you will see your fear of death will go out the window, and everything else will seem very stupid. So yeah, just like what we said a couple lives ago, is like, they're always around. They are always around. This spirit realm overlaps this one. It's just your perception. These entities are all around you all the time. So, it's like
November 16th, 2017, I did the video. You can literally, I at least it happened to me. I can leave my body like when I'm in the shower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I come back, and it's wow.
There's an institute. There's an institute that people would go to. It's called the Monroe Institute. I think it's in Virginia. They teach people. To get out of their body. Yeah. Yes. Well, we're going to talk about that next week. Let's talk a little bit more about, because demons are divine ones. Yeah.
I mean, they're my friend. They're your friend.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily hate you. You haven't done anything to really piss them off, at least not in this lifetime, I hope.
Well, like going back to what he was saying, like spirits are like human, some are good, some are bad. So you can't classify them all as one thing. And that's
exactly.
Can I tell a little story on here? I knew a guy that this dude had the worst luck. I mean, this guy, if the crap was going to fall, it was going to fall on him. And I remember he wrote me, and this has been a couple of years ago. He says, "What's wrong with me? Why?" And I said, "Why don't you make peace with the spirits around you?" And he says, "How do I make peace with it?" And I said, "Well, sometimes just simply saying, 'I'm sorry. I didn't mean to piss you guys off.'"
Right.
I said, "They're not terrible beings." He went a step further. He took the favor ritual, and he wrote this thing out, and he says, "I'm sorry for anything I've done in this life, past lifetimes. I'd like to, start anew." Anyway, he writes me back a couple of months, and he says, "It's a new world for me."
Well, there you go.
Yeah. He said he got a promotion at his job, got a new car, found a new girlfriend. I mean, yeah. And he said it wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
There you go. Just speak it out loud. There you go. That's
Well, I appreciate you two so much. Thank you. I mean, this is encouraging. I mean, this is what I used to teach motivation to sales executives. This I would incorporate into my sales training, because this allows an individual to take that step out into the wild side and just experience. There is a lot of goodness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Man, I so dig y'all. So dig. I know, Nina, you have your show this evening, right?
Yep. 6:00 Pacific time zone. Come on over and get a free message from spirits.
I bet that guy, I think they're going to be talking. And Ruric, I tell you, you and I are brothers from a different mother. I mean, that's all I got to say is that you are a part. There's a kinship, and I just appreciate your energy and the fact that you come on. And I know it takes time, but I really do appreciate that. It's not wasted.
I appreciate you, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you all. JD, we send you love, and Sarah, wherever y'all are. We'll see you most likely next week. I have no idea, but I'm just, just putting the feelers out there.
Yeah.
I got a sense that everything is cool, so that's a good thing. All right, everybody, we will see y'all tomorrow. Thank you, and support these folks, man. If you're not subscribed, it's the best way of just saying thank you. And show them some love. And because guess what? We all need that assurance, every one of us. And if a person can see their channel increase by 100 or 2, that's a lift me up. So just saying, and they're beautiful people. I mean, seriously, I don't care what that spirit told me. You ought to see how you look to us. So, all right, much love, everyone. Hit the like button on the way out. Thank you, and share the video. And again, folks, we're on a path here, and it's not this dark path. That's all I got to say. Demonology 101 is a fun place to be. So, all right, until next week with the same group, you'll see all me tomorrow. Thank you again.